You know that feeling when someone says something that goes against what you believe, and before they even finish talking, you're already preparing your response in your head. Yeah, that. Let's talk about what's actually happening there, because it's not what you think. I was at dinner last week. My friend brought up something political. Doesn't matter what. Within 30 seconds, my other friend was leaning forward, jaw tight, index finger up, ready to explain exactly why that was wrong. He didn't pause, didn't ask a question, didn't say, interesting, tell me more. He went straight into countering mode. And here's the thing, I watched myself do the exact same thing 2 days later in a conversation about education. Someone said something I disagreed with, and I felt this surge, this need to correct, to fix, to set the record straight. I wasn't listening anymore. I was loading ammunition. What your brain is actually doing when someone challenges something you believe, your brain doesn't treat it like a new information to consider. It treats it like an incoming threat. Not a physical threat, obviously. You're not going to get punched because someone thinks your political views are wrong. But your brain doesn't make that distinction very well. See, your beliefs aren't just thoughts you have. They are the scaffolding holding up your entire sense of reality. You've built your life on these ideas. Your relationships, your choices, your understanding of how the world works. It all rests on certain beliefs being true. So when someone questions one of those beliefs, your brain hears, the foundation of your reality might be crumbling. And it panics. Quietly, automatically, before you even know it's happening. Pay attention next time it happens. Notice how fast your mind moves when someone says something you disagree. And within a fraction of a second, your brain has decided they are wrong, started searching your memory for proof, found 3 counter arguments, dismissed their credibility, prepared your response. You don't choose to do this. It just happens, like blinking when something flies at your face. Your brain is protecting you from uncertainty, from the possibility that you might be wrong, from the massive amount of work it would take to rebuild your understanding if this belief collapsed. It's easier to defend than to reconsider. So you defend. There's this thing psychologists talk about called motivated reasoning. Fancy term for something simple. Your brain has already decided what it wants to be true, and now it's just looking for evidence to support that. You ever notice how when you disagree with someone, you can spot every flaw in their argument immediately? But when you agree with someone, you can give them the benefit of the doubt on shaky logic. That's not you being fair-minded with your allies and critical of your enemies. That's your brain in lawyer mode. It's not seeking truth, it's building a case. And the wild thing is, you don't even realize you're doing it. It feels like you're just being logical, reasonable, clear thinking. But watch someone else do it about a topic you don't care about, and you can see it plain as day. They are not thinking, they are defending. Finding flaws that confirm what they already believe and ignoring flaws in their own position. We all do this, every single one of us, all the time. You would think intelligent, educated people would be better at this, right? They'd be more open-minded, more willing to change their views when presented with evidence. Nope. Often they are worse, because intelligence doesn't make you more rational. It makes you better at rationalizing. A smart person who believes something can construct incredibly sophisticated arguments to defend it. They can find obscure studies. They can poke holes in opposing evidence. They can build these elaborate logical structures that make their positions seem very strong. I know a guy with a PhD who believes the moon landing was fake. And let me tell you, arguing with him was exhausting. But because he is smart enough to make bad evidence sound convincing, he's got an answer for everything. A reason why every piece of contrary evidence doesn't count. He's not stupid. He's just using his intelligence in every service of a belief instead of in service of truth. We all do this with something. There is something deeply satisfying about being certain, about knowing you're right. You ever win an argument? Remember that feeling? That little burst of satisfaction? Maybe you showed them facts they couldn't refute. Maybe you pointed out a contradiction they couldn't explain. Maybe they just gave up and walked away. And you felt victorious. And that feeling is your brain rewarding you for successfully defending your worldview. It feels good because, from your brain's perspective, you just protected yourself from danger. You maintained your grip on reality. You didn't have to face the discomfort of being wrong. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Did you actually get closer to the truth? Or did you just successfully avoid having to question yourself? Watch what happens when someone shows you evidence that contradicts your belief. Your mind immediately starts generating reasons why that evidence doesn't count. Where would they get that statistic? Probably biased. That's one example. Doesn't prove anything. Yeah, but they're not considering the other factor. That source isn't credible. And look, sometimes these objections are valid. Sometimes evidence really is biased or incomplete or misleading. But notice how your brain always seems to find these problems with evidence that disagrees with you and rarely with evidence that supports you. That's not critical thinking, that's selective skepticism. Real skepticism is consistent. It questions everything equally, including ideas you like. Most of the beliefs we defend, mostly aggressively, we didn't really choose them. They came from our parents, our community, our culture. We absorbed them when we were too young to think critically. They formed before we even knew what belief was. By the time we are adults, these beliefs didn't even feel like beliefs at all. They feel like reality, like common sense, like just the way things are. So when someone challenges them, we don't think here's a belief I should examine. We think this person is confused about reality. And then we try to unconfuse them. We explain, we correct, we provide evidence. We get frustrated when they don't get it. We are defending something we never consciously choose to believe. Something that's been operating in the background our whole lives, shaping how we see everything. Here's what makes it worse. Beliefs aren't just personal, they are social. When you believe something, you usually share that belief with a group of people. Your family, your friends, your political party, your religious community, your ideological tribe. These people aren't just people who happen to agree with you. They are your people. The ones who get you, the ones who see the world the way you do, the ones who trust. Changing your belief doesn't mean admitting you were wrong. It means potentially separating yourself from your group, disappointing people you love, becoming the weird one who doesn't think like everyone else anymore. Your brain knows this. Even if you don't consciously think about it, your brain is calculating. If I agree with this person who's challenging me, what happens to my relationships, my community, my place in the tribe? For most of human history, being cast out of your tribe meant death. You couldn't survive alone. You didn't live in that world anymore. But our brains haven't caught up. They still treat ideological exile like a survival threat. So you defend. You signal loyalty to your group by rejecting the outsider's ideas. You protect your place in the tribe. You ever spend hours arguing with someone online or get into a heated debate with a family member that ruins the whole evening? Notice how you feel afterward, even if you won, even if you made great points and they couldn't refute you. You feel drained, wired but tired, frustrated. That's because your brain has been in defense mode the whole time. It's been working overtime to maintain your certainty, generate arguments, suppress doubts, and protect your worldview. It's exhausting. And after a while, a lot of people just stop. They stop with engaging with people who disagree. They curate their social media to filter out opposing views. They avoid certain topics at family gatherings. They stick to spaces where everyone thinks like them. It feels like relief, like peace. But it's also how you become trapped in your own perspective. You stop encountering anything that could challenge you, could expand you, could help you see what you're missing. You become more certain of things you have never really examined. Next time someone says something that triggers that defense relax, try something. Pause, just for a second, before you respond, before you build your counter argument, before you explain why they are wrong. Notice what's happening in your mind. Notice the urge to correct them, the certainty that you're right, the feeling that you need to respond right now. And then ask yourself, am I defending a position or am I defending my identity? Because here's the truth. When you feel an urgent need to prove you're right, that's usually a sign the belief has become a part of who you are. You're not protecting an idea, you're protecting yourself. The beliefs we hold most tightly are usually the ones we have questioned the least. Think about something you're absolutely certain of, something where disagreement seems absurd to you, something you would argue about passionately. Now ask yourself, How do I actually know this is true? Not what evidence supports it, because you can always find evidence for anything if you look selectively. But what would it take to change my mind? What evidence would I accept as proof I'm wrong? And have I genuinely looked for that evidence? Those are hard questions, uncomfortable questions, because they require you to admit that maybe, possibly, you don't have it all figured out. Maybe the people who disagree with you aren't just stupid or brainwashed. Maybe they see something you don't. Most of us never ask those questions. It's easier to just stay certain. 5 years ago, you believed things you don't believe now. You were certain about stuff that you have since changed your mind on. 5 years from now, you'll probably believe things you can't imagine believing today. That's not failure. That's not weakness. That's what growth looks like. But growth only happens when you stop defending long enough to actually listen. When you notice that reflex to argue and choose to get curious instead. Why do they believe that? What are they seeing that I might be missing? What if there is something here I don't understand? Not as manipulation, not as a tactic to win arguments, but as genuine curiosity about reality. But here's the thing, being right feels good, but being less wrong than you were yesterday, that's actually useful. Your brain is going to fight you on this. It's going to keep generating those quick defenses, those reasons to dismiss, that urgency to correct. That's fine. That's just what brains do. But you don't have to obey it. You can notice it, recognize it for what it is, and choose something else. Not because you're weak, not because you don't have strong convictions, but because you're more interested in what's true than in being right. And that makes all the difference. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe if you liked it.